Hello everyone and welcome back to Covetous Imp Gaming. Today I want to talk about some DM tips and answer some DM related questions. If you like what I'm doing on the channel and you like this video, please hit the like button below, hit the subscribe button and the bell so you're alerted to my future content. Leave me a comment below about videos you would like to see in the future or other DM questions that you may have. Check me out on Facebook and Patreon, the links are down below. So my first tip is to find the things that you struggle with and try to troubleshoot outside of game, either before your game or, after your game when you feel like you've missed something and you're kicking yourself over it. First of all, don't beat yourself up over it. And second of all, try to find a way to fix it going forward. So for some people, it's tracking concentration. Whatever you're using to track initiative, you can also use to track concentration. For me, I use dry erase cards in the top of my DM screen. You can just, under the person's name, put a C with a circle around it, and that way it'll constantly remind you that they're concentrating on something. For other people, it's conditions. You can use condition coins or condition rings, and it's just a little ring that goes around their mini that will denote that they're blessed or baned or cursed or hasted or slowed or have some other magical or physical effect going on. And it's great because every time you look at the terrain that you have out on the table, you'll see that they have something going on with them, and it'll constantly put you at, oh, don't forget, there's that going on. Everybody always remembers that they're blessed. Nobody ever remembers that they're baned. For me, it's tracking layer actions. And so what I've done to kind of counter that is I keep a coin on my DM screen in that top rail that marks where initiative count 20, losing all ties, is going to be. And that kind of acts as my soft reset for the round as well. So if if I need to call for a concentration check that I missed, I can say, oh, by the way, you took damage. I need you to make a concentration check. And it's kind of that soft reset for your round. If anything that got missed or anything that you need to cover, you can kind of check the pacing of your combat that way as well. It's a good kind of time stop that happens every single round where you can say, you can kind of get the pulse on combat at the time. And it also happens to make a good reminder for layer actions if that's something that's going on in that particular fight. So next up, I want to talk about the big no-no in the room, and that's the word no. As the Dungeon Master, you are the storyteller and the narrator of the story. And in that, you have to manage so many different things. But one of the things that you're not managing is your players' characters' free will. They can do whatever they want, and they can attempt to do whatever they want, more specifically. One example I will give you is your party enters a dungeon and they see a Medusa admiring a sculpture that she herself has created. And the cleric says, I want to cast Hold Person on the Medusa. Now, rule of cool, you could say, okay, let's see how this goes, even though you know that this is not a humanoid, it's a monstrosity, and you just let it happen. And that's probably the best case scenario. In the middle, you have the outside of game saying, no, you can't do that. And explaining that kind of to preserve the spell slot. No, you can't do that because this is a monstrosity, not a humanoid, and therefore it would be immune to the spell. Don't waste your spell slot. And finally, you attempt to cast Hold Person on the monster, but it doesn't have any effect. You don't roll a saving throw because it's unaffected by the spell, and you move on with the encounter as it is. And if the person asks, you can say this, while maybe looking like a humanoid, doesn't have the characteristics of a humanoid, it has the characteristics of a monstrosity. So there's a lot of right and wrong in every single one of those answers. Your experienced player might be upset that you allowed the encounter to get cheesed by breaking the rules, by following a rule of cool, okay, it looks like a humanoid. While the newer player might be upset that they wasted a spell slot because they shouldn't have been able to target the thing because it's not a humanoid. Moving on from that into something that's a little bit easier to manage is the idea that you don't control players' characters' free will. You're the narrator and the storyteller, and you describe the world, but you don't control the actions that they take and the decisions that they make in that world. So you have a player who decides that they want their character to punch a bartender in the face, for example. And that's obviously going to cause a rift in the world, or in at least this town, and the characters standing with the town. And so you can be their conscience for a moment and say, and allow them to kind of fantasize about what this action is going to look like in a few minutes. Basically, the next few minutes of this action, allow it to play out over the seconds before this punch connects. And if they still decide that that's something that they want to do, then they already know the consequence. Now, this is something great for insightful characters, because that's well within the realm of insight. And for players that are more less insightful, or players that are less insightful, that's not necessarily something that you can use as an option. But I want to punch this bartender in the face. Okay, so in your mind's eye, you see this bartender clutching his nose, blood gushing down his face, and he runs outside of the tavern screaming for the guards. Moments later, you are surrounded by guards in heavy armor wielding pikes, hauling you off to jail, or worse. And if the player still wants to go through with that action, then they already know the consequence. Another one is the physical feats that people will try to get away with when they realize that no is not in your vocabulary. Like, I want to punch through this wall, or I want to jump this huge chasm. And those are all great, but your no in that can either be the, you step to the edge and you realize that this chasm is very deep and not making this jump will be fatal. Or, you punch at the wall several times and you realize that you're just not getting through it. Other than that, you can just set a very high DC, and unfortunately, let them know that the DC for that is very high and that failure will probably be fatal, or result in an injury, so on and so forth. And again, if they continue down that path, then they already are aware of the consequence, and you've just played their conscience, as opposed to just saying, no, you can't jump this chasm, or no, you can't punch this person in the face, or whatever the case may be. So the next thing I want to talk about is evil player characters. This should be something that you should embrace fully, because depending on the player, they might be able to put a lot of depth into your game that will kind of pick up roleplay options for the entire table just off of one person not fitting in with the rest of the group. You've got good players that are going to do their best to try to redeem this evil person, and you can have this evil person also try to influence the good players to be evil. This good person, or this evil person, could be a joiner, for example. They get to the big bad guy and they say, hey, I'm here to help you. Let's kill these guys and let me be your apprentice. Or they can be the evil that says, I want to get there and I want to take this power for myself. And these different options that they're bringing to the table add a lot of depth to your game. That's not just, it kind of veers outside of the story and gives more potential for role play at your table. So as usual, actions have consequences, and being that evil person and doing evil deeds is going to rack up consequences for that character. But is it worth it? You know, are you going to get caught? Are you not going to get caught? And there's a level of stealth that goes into that evil character's development. And, you know, are you hiding this from the party? Are you doing this with the party's consent? All these things kind of go into that evil character. Now, I've heard some people say that playing an evil character is easy because you just don't care about anything. Evil characters have values and a value system. It's just different and skewed from that of a good character. You take someone like Magneto, right? Magneto was wronged in his past, and he does his evil deeds to guarantee that his kind won't be wronged like that in the future. And to me, I think that's one of those characters that you can really build a lot on. And I've seen all these things play out at my own table. I've seen somebody make a character kind of based on Magneto, where he was wronged in the past, and he was going to be evil, and he was, for the most part, openly evil to the rest of his party. And when one of the characters died, and they died an irrecoverable death, it changed him in a way that he couldn't be evil anymore. And he flat out said, my plan was to get powerful and murder all of you, and I just can't do it anymore. And the party took that and kind of, you know, dealt with it in their own way, but ultimately said, okay, well, you've seen the light and you've redeemed yourself. Let's move on. So one big takeaway from that is, you know, definitely don't tell someone, no, you can't be an evil person, but also understand that the group is probably going to do more policing of that evil person than you will ever have to, especially if they're doing things more out in the open. So as I get to the end of this video, I want to leave you guys with 3 final tips. Quick ones. Number 1, if you feel like you messed up, you probably didn't mess up enough for your players to notice, and they probably still had a great time. So don't beat yourself up over a possible mistake. Just try to correct it for your next game. Number 2, don't let a ruling bog down combat or bog down your game. Make a ruling in the moment and say, this is the ruling we're going to go with for today, and I'm going to look into it for next time, and I will have a actual definitive rule going forward next time. And the last thing is, make sure that you're also having fun. This is a game for you as well. And while you're taking a different role as a player, you are still trying to enjoy playing a game as well. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you have any questions that I didn't cover in this video, please feel free to leave them down in the comments below, and I will get to them as soon as I can. Thanks, guys.